me today. What I'm going to take you through is an introduction to the striving styles, and it's really intended to provide you with an understanding of, how to develop the system, where it's used, how it's used, and how it is from a developmental perspective that it really does expedite behavioral change and human development. And I'm Heather Hilliard. I'm one of the creators of the Striving Styles. I'm a behavioral change expert. I've been working in this field for over 20 years now. Most of my experience has been in the organizational context, where I've worked with leaders and teams and executive teams, as well as teams at levels of the organization. The last 4 years, I've been working more and more in the individual context, as well as with in relationships, parenting, child development, so that the gamut. And so as I go through the materials today, I'll talk a little bit about the applications in some of these different areas. Okay. And the intention here is to give you enough information that sort of get a sense of, again, what's in behind us, and then how is it different, and how would I come to use it, in an organization, or as a consultant or a coach or a therapist, or even in my own life, because a lot of people we find, as they look at exploring the striving styles, start looking at it from the perspective of their own lives. And certainly when my partner and I started to work on striving styles, a lot of what was driving our need to create this system was frustration in our own personal lives, as well as with some of the work we were doing with clients, feeling like we didn't have the tool we needed to really understand why people are behaving the way they are, including ourselves sometimes, and what is it that we really need to do to help people shift from what they know they should be doing to how it is they're actually behaving. Striving Styles is really geared towards helping people understand very simply and very easily why it is they behave the way they do. So most of us have an awareness of how we behave, and certainly a lot of the assessment tools that are out there will reflect back to us our behavioral preferences. But even if I know how I prefer to behave, if I don't understand why and what's actually driving my behavior, then I'm at the mercy of my unconscious impulses and behavioral habits, as opposed to being able to actively shift how that I'm behaving in my world. And most of us don't understand the mechanics of our minds. It's the one thing where most of us understand more about other organs, such as sick, than we about how our mind actually works and how the brain is organized and what that means. And certainly, I know that most of us have some level of awareness that we have a particular pattern of, I always do things this way, or this is what I always seem to be creating in life. I go into the same kind of relationship, or I run into the same power struggle with my boss at work, or in the case of CEOs, I build a team, and then I fire a whole bunch of people, and then I rebuild it, and I'm constantly in that state. But most people don't know how to actually get in and really break those patterns of behavior that are getting in the way of achievement and success on whatever level that people define it. So when we created the Striving Styles, it was really about looking at, how do we help people understand who they are, who they're meant to be, how their brain is organized, what's driving their behavior, and why they behave that way. But then more importantly, taking them through all of the pieces of what does that mean from a developmental perspective. So whereas a lot of the other assessment tools that we worked with, such as the Myers-Briggs, with this information, it was really incumbent upon us as the consultant to interpret, or the practitioner to interpret, well, what did this mean for the client, and then what did we do in terms of development? And so with the Striving Styles, it's an integrated approach where we take the client through both the assessment and a really clear step-by-step system for development that shows them how the brain is organized, how needs and emotions actually influence, drive the behavior as opposed to our thoughts, and how it is that they can break free of any of those behaviors or behavioral patterns actually getting in the way of their development and growth. We show people through the Striving Styles how to access all of the natural abilities and inclinations of their brain, so that we're not talking to them about strengths and weaknesses or defining some degree of limitation for them, but really showing them everything that they're capable of in terms of their true potential, and how to strengthen that authentic self by remapping their brain and satisfying the predominant need. And of course, we do all of these things in a really simple, easy way for people to understand. And that was one of the things that was important for us, that it would be simple enough that even a 10-year-old child would be able to grasp it and grasp what was driving their behavior and actually being able to talk about it and articulate it. And so this what's really in behind the striving styles are all of the elements. Core of the striving styles is the assertion that each one of us is born with a predominant need and a pattern of energy, what we call striving style, that really determines how we will behave in order to get that need met. And that is very, very different from the systems that are out there today, which look at mental functions or look at personality, organization solely. What we've done is looked at actual needs, the psychological needs that each one of us has hardwired us into us at birth, and how that need actually influences our patterns of behavior in our lives. And again, that really looking, understanding the mind, how the mind works, how it's organized, what it means for us, and what we like to call the user's manual. So it really is if I understand the mechanics of my mind, then I can actually direct how it functions and how I feel. Really very much arose from frustration with existing approaches. And one of the stories I always tell around this is that both personally and professionally, when you're doing a lot of work around behavioral change, looking at your own behavior, looking at your client's behavior, we can see we have a client who's the chief operating officer of a global organization, and we could see what it was that he needed to be doing. We could see what it was that he was actually doing. And so he was in this situation where the second things got too difficult for him in his role at office, he would hop on a plane and go from to facility. Because the second he did that, he would immediately feel better, because he would arrive at the facility and he would be greeted like he was some hero, because, oh, look, COO has come to visit us. We're back in head office, because he was under the gun for delivering and for results. He wasn't getting his need met in the environment. And so his behavior, even though he knew he should stay and fix the issues and work through the issues at office, constantly hop on the plane when the go is tough and out of Dodge. And so we could see this behavioral pattern that was going on, but there was nothing in the tools that were out there in the marketplace at that point in time that really helped us to be able to say to him, this is why you're doing this. Okay? We could talk about the fact that it's not helping him and it's undermining him and all of those sorts of things which he agreed to. But because we never really understood why he was doing it, we couldn't get to the heart of what was behind the behavior, the need he was seeking to meet. And so we were caught struggling to actually shift his behavior in that situation. And so because he didn't know why he was doing it, that's what he felt compelled to do, and so off he would go. So this is where we were looking for something that would really help in any field where we're doing behavioral change, certainly leadership and team development, where we could actually get at the dynamics of the team and the team's behavior, as opposed to simply talking about it from a more static perspective of, how they actually behaving. It's like, why? What's going on underneath all of that? What's the root cause of the dynamic? So we can actually shift the dynamic. And so organizational effectiveness, change facilitation, approach that's more individually oriented, therapy, counseling, and coaching, and certainly for individuals looking for personal or professional growth. So what we did as we set out to create the striving styles was we said that there's a lot of information and understanding about personality, about what drives our behavior, about how the mechanics of our mind, but nothing's been developed that really pulls all that research and all of that understanding together in an integrated way. And so we found ourselves using the Myers-Briggs for personality type, emotional code indicator for understanding emotional intelligence levels, and any other tools that we could take a look at, the Herman-Briggs dominance. And so we had to sit back for the client and go, well, what does this all mean when we look at all of these, we take all these different perspectives and we pull it together into a single picture. And so we found ourselves having to administer multiple assessments in order to get at the information that we really wanted to get. So what we did was we spent the last years researching all of the theories and authors that are out there that shed light on the mechanics of the mind and what it is that we can do to help us to achieve our potential as human beings. And so I take you through in a high level sort of what those theories are. Again, if feel free to ask any questions as I go through this. At the big level of the striving styles is the 4-quadrant model of the brain. And so we started with Jung's psychological type because my business partner and I have been working with Myers-Briggs and with Jung's theory for a very, very long time, and we really believe in the value of that theory, and as the starting point for the striving styles, which says we have 4 mental functions, and we have a preference for whether we introvert or extrovert each one of those mental functions. So the place is that there's 4 functions and 2 attitudes that go with each one of those functions. So a total of 8 striving styles is what it ultimately led to. And then we looked at the work of Herman and Benziger, who looked at brain specialization and lateralization theories, and Benziger in particular, who actually mapped Jung's 4 functions on the brain. So we can now look at the 4 quadrants of the brain, know what function each quadrant plays in our lives or in our personality, and we can also look at the talents and abilities that are naturally associated to each one of those functions, in the overall belief that while one of those functions is our preferred, it's hardwired into us. In fact, it's 100 times more efficient than the other 3. We have access to all 4 of the functions. It's up to us in our lifetime to work at integrating those 4 functions through our own development of our brain. So that is a model that says we have 4 functions, and this is how our brain is organized. And then we brought in all of the research and all of the understanding around what actually drives our behavior. So the evolutionary brain and its systems, how that impacts in on behavior, and also looking at attachment and the role of conditioning in behind the behavioral patterns that get established or laid down for us. And then finally, when we looked at from a human development and a brain development perspective, we went and brought in all of the research that's available today that's emerged over the last 10, 15 years, particularly the understanding about the neuroplasticity of the brain, Deutsch's work about how we can, at any point in time in our lifetime, change the patterns or the pathways that are there in our brain in order to shift our behavior, but what it actually takes and how that actually happens. We've integrated emotional and social brain development, so models from Goleman and Siegel, as well as mindfulness and the elements of the cognitive behavioral therapy model. It is comprehensive and quite unique from that perspective, where the striving styles is not a single discipline system, but one that integrates all the knowledge and all of the understanding and brings it together into a series of components that really help clients and individuals to understand what's driving their behavior and how to actually become conscious of that so they can direct their own behavior rather than acting more from those emotional impulses or habits of mind. Translated all that theory out is, as I said, we've got some key components to the striving styles that you see listed here. And I'm just going to take you through and a little bit of information about each one of these components and see what they are and how they would work in interaction with clients or inside of organizations or as part of development programs. Okay? So the first thing we start talking about that's quite different is that the striving styles is based on innate psychological needs. And what we do is we teach people what those needs are. And so each one of us has a predominant psychological need, and then we also have 3 other needs based on our brain organization. But what our behavior does, consciously and unconsciously, is our behavior always seeks to get these needs met. And so if the needs are not being met, we will find other ways through our behavior to get need met. So, for example, one of the styles that perform is the need to be recognized, and so they're not getting that need to be recognized met in their in their life at home. They will actually do things that will get them negative attention, because if I can't get myself positive attention and recognition, then I will shift and do things that cause me to get negative attention, because for them, even that psychological need to be recognized, it doesn't matter whether the attention is positive or negative, as long as I'm getting my need met. The power of these psychological needs, that they are the source of all motivation and social interaction. All of our behavior is directed around getting those needs met. And when we're aware of what our needs are, we become more conscious of when our needs have been frustrated, and we can also move to negotiate to get those needs met. So to the example of my client, who would take off and all over the place whenever he was feeling too stressed or overwhelmed at work. And what need was trying to get met was the need to be recognized, combined with a need to be liked. So his need to be connected, because when he was in the midst of the issue and trying to deal with all of the conflict, it was frustrating his need to be seen in a particular way. And so, but when he went out to the facilities, they will treat him like a hero. So his need to be recognized met. But in the meantime, his performance was suffering because he wasn't attending to the work that he needed to attend to. And so this is what we talk about with the clients. We teach them what these needs are, how they show up in their lives, the behavioral patterns that are associated with getting these needs met when you're doing it in a self-actualizing way versus behaviors that will come out when you're going after getting these needs met in a more self-protective way. So people can see the difference between their productive behaviors that in terms of getting the needs met and their more unproductive behaviors. And again, these are naturally driven behavioral patterns, and we've simply captured them so people understand when they're working in their own best interest and when they're behaving in their own best interest. Okay? One of the striving styles has their own specific innate psychological need. So going to the 4 quadrants in the brain, as I mentioned when I was talking a little bit about the theory, there's one of these quadrants performs a different function, and this is where I know for myself and for the clients that I've worked with this, they have a lot of aha moments, because what we do is show them which one of these 4 quadrants is their dominant, which one of these 4 quadrants is their what we call second command, and then which are the 2 that are likely to be less developed or less connected to the predominant part of their brain. So each one of these quadrants has very specific talents and abilities. And so if we do not have access to one of these 4 quadrants, it makes it very challenging for us to perform the role or to do those activities that are normally associated with that particular part of the brain. So for example, the predominant part of the brain is the upper left quadrant there, where you see logic, reason, planning, and organizing. That I am focused on defining the world. And so I will go into every situation, see to get my need met, to either be in control or be not knowledgeable, because that's what I did out of that part of the brain. But more importantly is what I'm going to be really good at is planning and organizing and deciding and defining and telling people what needs to be done and knowing how things need to be done. But the part of the brain that I'm going to have the most difficulty accessing is down there on the lower right, where you're part of the emotional brain, where you see the activities of holistic relational valuing and harmonizing. That lower right part of the brain is the part of the brain is for relationships. And so if my prominent part of my brain is the upper left, the part of the brain I have the least amount of access to is the part of the brain I need to use for my relationships. So you can imagine what happens in relationships with people who are living of the upper left part of their brain. Relationships will be task-focused, they'll be functional, they'll have difficulties with conflict, with coaching, with giving feedback, with moving into doing things simply for the sake of the relationship, as opposed to doing things because there's some purpose or outcome attached to it. The way the brain works is we can show people based on this information how it is that they would develop up those pathways and those connections, the different quadrants of the brain. The trial shows them the degree to which they're using each one of those quadrants, and again, that allows them to look at their development from the perspective of what do I need to do to strengthen up that part of my brain So if I want to improve my relationships or the quality of my relationships, or I want to be more effective in my leadership role, how do I start to practice accessing the part of my brain that is most difficult for me to access? The other that differentiates us is we talk about the impact of fear and the impact of emotions on behavior. And what we show people an understanding of, as much as we would all like to believe we're rational human beings, the fact is that the way our brains actually develop up is at the time of birth, we have a very, very strong connection between our instinctual brain and our emotional brain. And so that's, those pathways are laid down and they're very, very tight. And so that means when we experience something, our emotional brain has the experience, and then it immediately shifts into what's the instinctual response that I need to have behaviorally. The emotional brain has much fewer pathways or connections between and the emotional brain. And so what that means is our behavior is largely emotionally driven, and we have strengthened up and developed more connections between the rational brain and the emotional brain. Going back to the example of my COO client, who, even though he knew what he should be doing and in his best interest to do, his behavior continued to be driven off of his emotional instinctual brain. But he couldn't upshift into his rational brain. He didn't have the strength there to say, I don't have to override that decision, and I need to stay here, as difficult as it is for me and as most emotionally challenging as it is for me, because I feel all the things I feel and I don't want to feel them. I need to stay here and get this done. That would be behavior that would come out of him working out of his self-actualizing system, where you see in the self-actualizing system of brain, you have laid down all of those neural pathways and neural connections. Teach people through the striving styles is to recognize when they're living out of their self-protective system versus when they're living out of their self-actualizing system. And that allows them to see what it is that's going on and to make making conscious choice in their behavior, as opposed to simply running off of the same instinctual impulses from a behavioral perspective. And so what we do is we talk to them about fear, we talk to them about anxiety, we help people make the connection between what they're feeling and how they're behaving. A lot of individuals will do one of two, can have two different responses to them. If they happen to predominantly live more out of the upper rational cerebral brain, they will cut themselves off from their feelings, pretend that they're not having any, and it'll still show up in their behavior. Or we can have the alternative at the other extreme, whereas they will overindulge in their emotional experience and not be able to problem solve or move past it, because all they keep doing is reliving that same emotion over and over and over again and talking about what's been done to them, and and getting stuck that way. And so using this system, it provides us with the language to help the clients really understand what's going on in their thinking process, as well as what's going on through their emotional and instinctual brain, so they can connect those two and make choice in their lives to go after what it is that they really need and what they want. Put it all together into the striving styles, and as I said, there's 8 of them, and each one of those striving styles has a very distinct need, predominant psychological need that must be met. There's 2 striving styles for each function of the brain or quadrant of the brain, and one of them is focused outward, and one of them is focused inward. And it really is based on the location in the brain. Each striving style has very unique talents and abilities that allows it to get its needs met. So, for example, the leader who resides in that upper left quadrant of the brain, they have a need to be in control. And so the talents of this upper left quadrant is all about planning and organizing and defining, and so they can easily move to establish control over their external environment. Artist, going down to the flip side, the artist who resides in the lower right emotional brain, they have all of that ability to look at the world from a very harmonious perspective in order to meet their need to be creative. And so that ability to experience their emotions and to work through and process and look at things holistically. All of that gives them all of the talents that they need in order to be creative in their life, in whatever way they manifest that creativity. Here's another place where we start to really pull the striving styles together, which is, while identify through the assessment what your predominant striving style is, we also let you know the 3 other striving styles you have access to on what we call your squad. So your predominant striving style is in essence the alpha, and it dominates all of the others on your squad. And it's the need of your predominant is the one that's going to be the big driving force in your life. And one of these styles will be what we call your second in command. So that'll be the next kind of go-to place for you naturally in your brain. But the fact is we have access to 4. Most of us live out of 1, possibly 2, and the degree to which we are connected or disconnected from the other 2 can be quite significant. I know in my own experience when I started this, my role style is as a performer with the intellectual, but I also have socializer and stabilizer on my squad. And because when I grew up, it was all about using my performer and my intellectual. I had 0 connection to my socializer. So when I look back to my 20s and how I would have responded, into the styles based on my 20s, I would have come up literally with a 0 score for my socializer, saying I'm not using that part of my brain at all. And if you looked at what I was experiencing in my relationships, both at work and at home, it made total sense. And I remember one time in my 20s going through a 60 feedback process, and one of the questions was, displays emotions appropriately. And one of my staff wrote down, does she have any? Of course, a 0 score for me, my socializer. The socializer sits in the emotional relational part of the brain. That's the part of the brain we use for expressing emotion. And if I'm not using it at all, as far as everybody around me is concerned, I'm just a very functional individual. But you can't connect with me. You can't relate to me. You can't get in and have that kind of relationship. And so what people observe of me is that, I'm out there and I'm using my intellectual and my performer. I'm very knowledgeable, and I'm really good from a center stage perspective, going after achievements and all of the things that a performer will do, but connected from the part of my brain I need to form relationships. So it is knowing that, then I can go, and this is what I can say to my clients too, is, okay, we need to develop that part of your brain. Here are the specific activities you need to do in order to help you to develop that part of the brain. You need to become more consciously aware of when that part of the brain has to be used and how you're pulling back from participating in things, let's say, because you don't want to use that part of the brain, or rationalizing not doing something because you have to go use a part of the brain you're less comfortable with. It's very, very possible through this system when a client sees that, and for the practitioner who's working with them, to lay out a very specific course of action that allows them to develop up the parts of the brain that aren't well developed or well used, as well as to strengthen up their predominant style, because sometimes even have something as our predominant style, we're not living from it. It will create anxiety for us. It'll create depression. We'll have all sorts of other symptoms: eating too much, sleeping too much, shopping too much, working too much, patterns of behavior we will get into because our predominant need is not being met. And so we look at what's going on in a client's life or at work, and we look at their squad and the degree to which they're using the squad to figure out the specific course of action for them. And this is including the materials for the striving style, so that it's really easy for the practitioner and for the individual to work through their own development. 4 styles are designed to work together, so that the intention is, and this is what people had to do, is to learn to leverage the right member of your squad for the right situation and the right activity. And from the perspective of self-actualization, we have to use our brain as a whole, but most of us are not doing that. We're not living in that state. And the key, too, that we teach people is not to use members of the squad for roles that they're not designed to perform. So, for example, the leader with the need to be in control, we want someone using that style in their personal relationships, because all they're going to want to do in their personal relationships is control the other person or tell the other person what to do. The other person will react and resist and they'll have more conflict in the relationship as a result. So then access their artist, which always has on their squad. They'll go in and access their artist in order to create that relationship that they actually want to have. Right? The ways in which we can use the system and show them how all of the predictable patterns of behavior that come out at work or in relationships and in your career, whatever context you want to put in, as a result of where you're at in terms of your squad, and again the extent to which you're using the different members of it. So the roadmap development provides people with a very, very clear step-by-step approach to breaking those instinctual patterns of behavior that get in the way. So we start them off getting them to know their brain, really know it, and really know how they're living today in their current reality, getting them to recognize where they're using their self-protect behavior versus their self-actualizing behavior, where their needs are being met versus where their needs are being frustrated. Start observing themselves from that place of, what is it that I'm experiencing? Where my need? Am I getting my need met? Not getting it met, and so forth. And then which member of my squad am I actually using? Once gone through the process of getting to the brain, we focus in then on different activities around their course for development. And so them through this process, they define their goals, they figure the activities they need to do in order to achieve those goals, and actually take them through into the sequencing of, okay, what do I do first? What do I do second? We get all of the foundation understanding that actually helps them to go through the developmental process. So in building the foundation, we do a lot of work around mindfulness. We teach people mindfulness. We teach them and develop up their emotional intelligence competencies, what we call our building blocks for achieving potential. And we also give them lots of help in terms of moving action. We talk to them about how they're going to resist and struggle and what to do about it. We show them how to stay the course. So they need to work with other people. Every single one of the components of this roadmap can be pulled in and included in any developmental program. The client that I'm working with now, where they have an individual on the senior management team who's really struggling to envision what the future should look like. And so all they're doing is complaining about the current reality. And so there's activities and exercises in our development workbook that practitioners get and clients get that you simply pull out and get them to start focusing on that. And so the intention when we created this was to give practitioners and individuals everything that they possibly needed from a developmental perspective, purely from that place of you have to repattern your brain. The only way to repattern your brain is through experience. So we'll guide you through all of the experiences you need to have so that you can get to the behavioral change you're looking for. Have the developmental framework includes, as I said, the 5 building blocks to achieving potential, which is based on emotional maturation and brain development. And this is a key set that of competencies that we work on with all of the clients, regardless of their style, is really making sure that they're able to demonstrate these. And again, lots of exercises for them to practice it, lots of tips and techniques for how do you go out and how to assess yourselves, and how do you go out and actually make sure that you're demonstrating all of these particular competencies. So, the system's very robust from that perspective, from the perspective of development, because practitioners aren't left on their own to figure out what the client needs to do developmental. A lot of that is laid out for them. They've got all of the tools and resources. It's just up to them to choose how it fits within the context of whatever work they're doing with their organizations or with their clients. We do have a full suite of products, our level 1 assessment and report for core reports. And one of the things that's really different about our products is we have a lot of information in them so that people can really understand. We don't just give little glimmer. It's the depth of understanding. It's like we really it into people. You have to know your brain. You have to know how your brain is wired and what that means in terms of your behavior. And so the reports are there to provide them with that information. And so we also have the application reports. So if I'm working with someone from a career management perspective, we would go through the career health report, which gives them everything they need to know about how to get their need met at work and what kinds of careers are going to meet those needs. the kinds of circumstances that would frustrate the need, and therefore those are the types of organizations or careers that they should avoid or limit their exposure to. We have what we call reference reports, and what these do is they provide 8 pages of information on each one of the 8 styles. It's really good for organizations that are using striving styles in their development programs, but the leader wants to be able to have something that they can look at when managing their employees' performance and an issue comes up. As I said, we've got a very, very comprehensive roadmap that lays out for people step by step what they need to do, and the developmental workbook. And January 8th, the Who Are You Meant to Be book will be available North America, which is an introduction to the striving styles. And so it, again, introduces people here, but also has chapters on each one of the 8 styles, and a mini version of the developmental roadmap is in there as well. Lots of exercises for people. So the last piece is on becoming a practitioner. We are organized to support people who want to become qualified in using the system with their clients, and we provide all of the training that's needed in order to be able to do that, either for development programs or for personal growth. People who move on to becoming Striving Styles practitioners get access to specialized resources and support, both from an application perspective, like how do I use the Striving Styles in a team session, or how do I use the Striving Styles if I'm doing therapy, but also for those that have the need from how I talk to clients about the Striving Styles, how do I introduce it, how do I sell it, those sorts of things. Our practitioners receive a discount across the board on all the products of 50%. And they have the ability through the practitioner portal to be able to administer all of the assessments and products to their clients. And so they can just go in, have the clients do assessment, manage all of the products, the report, the webinars, all of those things they can assign to their clients so that the clients have direct and easy access to the resources. And right now we have a promotion going on that provides practitioners with 10 assessments upon completion of the qualification for those that take the next step. The qualifying program consists of 19 e-learning modules that are available through our site, but we do offer as well and schedule these in-person workshops that complement the learning modules. So what this is, there's lots of practitioners who do the training, but they still want to connect around it. They want to, talk through examples. They want to experience it firsthand in terms of interactive training, those sorts of things. We do offer, in addition to the online, the program on its own does not get you qualified because we don't cover all of the materials in the qualifying program, but there's because focus is mostly on really understanding the 8 styles. To complete qualifying, you have to pass an online test to a score of 80%. And really what we recommend before anyone goes into doing the qualifying program is that they do their level 1 assessment and look at the general report on their predominant style, as well as the leveraging your squad report. Because if you understand yourself and how it relates to you first, it helps you through the learning process as a qualified practitioner, and to become a qualified practitioner. That's the work through. Any questions, Sandra?
No, I don't actually. I have just signed up to do the assessment part. So I'm going to go and do the initial parts of the program and just sort of get a feel for it.
Terrific.
So go from there. So I'll give you a buzz if I have any questions about that or.
Okay.
Excellent.
Okay. Thanks, Sandra. Bye-bye.